Welcome to The Miracle You, guiding you on the journey towards finding passion and purpose and how to discover, create, and live a life by your design. Whether your success has been plentiful or your missed opportunities have been overwhelming, we can help you become a more empowered, masterful person and show you how to share your gift with the world. It's time to inspire change from within with the host of The Miracle You, Vince Kramer.
Hello, imagination. I'm Vince Kramer, your host, and welcome to The Miracle You, where you learn about the magic of living your life by finding the example in real life. One of the detriments of the society that we live in now, with almost instant access to anything and the ability to collect and bring things into our lives, is the fact that once we get to a place where there is so much clutter in our lives that we're overwhelmed, that we're unable to think, that we're not able to take a step without stepping over something or feeling like we're neglecting something, is really what holds us back in many different areas of our lives. And if we want to take the step of becoming who we really are, of discovering our own answers, to then taking that information and moving in directions that empower us, that empower others, that help us bring joy into our lives, we have to look at the clutter that we've created. Clutter creates chaos. Our guest today is going to talk about how to take the reset system and move into that place where you can have space. And in having space, you can find yourself. You can find your own answers. You can take your steps on your journey to finding you. Our next guest is going to share with us how uncluttering, how removing the clutter will remove the chaos in your life and open up the space for you to discover who you are, to understand that you have so much power, and in that power is really where you can affect the world and you can live the life that you want to live. Opening that door by resetting your life, that's the 5-step system that our guest is going to share with us today. And she's going to walk us through each of those steps and explain to us why it's so important. As a corporate leader, as a woman entrepreneur, as a mom or a dad, this information is going to be so available to you. So let's look at taking clutter out of our lives and making space for who we really are. We are recording. I'm with Diane Halfman today, and Diane was an undercover cop for the San Diego Police Department, where she experienced a unique perspective of life behind the scenes. Diane took her years of experience to pioneer the creation of her own company called Spa Life, which stands for Seek Power Always. As the host of the live Your Spa Life podcast and as the reset specialist, Diane travels the country speaking, consulting, conducting workshops dedicated to helping overwhelmed women entrepreneurs move from a life of emergency to emergence. Diane, are you ready to share the miracle of you with the imagination?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
I'm so excited to have you here today. Diane and I and our spouses were just at a recent event where we had an opportunity to kind of reconnect from knowing each other over the years, kind of spotting off and on. But I love what you and Carrie are doing in the world, and especially what you're bringing. Could you share a little bit more? The bio didn't do you or your work any justice at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Vince, for just being part of this conversation together. And I just think when we reach out into the community, it's really important to share our journey and what that looks like. And a lot of times what people didn't know is when I was on the police department, I was a single mom, 2 young girls. How many times do we have to wear multiple hats? I had to be strong in the community as a police officer and be shown up for emergencies, but then also have that worry of a mom, in the background, making my mortgage payment, making sure my girls were safe, making sure that I was getting all the things done of all the balls that we throw up in the air. And so, just walking through life in the journey, I love talking about not only my life on the police department, working patrol, but also working undercover and what that feels like and how vulnerable you can feel in the world. And so I'm super passionate now, not only supporting entrepreneurial women, but corporate leaders as well, because it's so important. We tend to second guess ourselves and not stand in our power. And I'm really passionate about us all seeing ourselves as leaders and stepping into that leadership role, even if it's a leader of one.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. In the experiences that you've had on the street as an undercover cop, there must have been also some really worried about just being able to be there for your girls when at the end of the day, you really chose an occupation to start out your life in that as a single mother, I'm sure you worried all the time about just being able to go home and be there for them. What really got your attention and wanted you to move into this work about helping people see and find and step into their power?
Great question, Vince. I think it's kind of a two-part there because, it starts, I believe my daughters actually saved my life because they were the reason that I, had the intention that I would be coming home every single night because I had to. So really, I think that no matter what we do, I think there's something about kind of putting on your game face, getting into the mindset, being focused, being really intentional about what you're doing. It's imperative with your life with police work, but it's also imperative in how we live our life, whether that is our call to what we're doing, or even with our family. Like when we're intentional and have that focus, that's where we're going to move forward. That's when we're going to be safe. And that's where things are going to really change and happen for us. Now, there are the unpredictabilities of things that happen in life, right? That's just part of the story, which is part of what we step into. And one of the things late into my career that had happened is that one of my dear friends' 7-year-old daughter had been kidnapped and killed. And that not only shook our neighborhood and our community, but my own family, because they only lived a mile away from our home. They had an alarm. They had a dog. It was like doing all the right things that you think you can do to protect your family. And I felt a sense of like, how can this happen in my neighborhood? How is it as me as a police officer, I'm not protecting my friends and their children and the fear in my own children of what that looks like. And that was such a wake-up call to see that there are vulnerable things that happen in our life. And what can we see? Like, what is it that we can do? Where do we go from there? Because there's times where it can feel like we're just flat on our back and we can ask all the questions of, why did this happen? But that doesn't actually serve us. We have to look at what are the messages in this? Where can we take things with it? Where can we go with this? And, the mother did a lot of shifts and change with legislation that have protected other children. I was a liaison between the police department and the family, and we led one of the largest volunteer groups of people coming to help find her before we were able to actually find her. And it was a call to action to the community to be involved. And this is really some of the things we want to look at is in our darkest moments. And some people like to share it as, the messages in our mess, like the things that just feel the most overwhelming and crazy. There is a message in there. It's part of what you're here to do. And so that's why I'm such a stand for people just to stand in their power, to be empowered, because even in the worst circumstances, there is something you can do to make a change.
Where did that motivate you once you made the decision to retire, to step into the work that you're doing? How did that wake up affect this?
Well, I think that there's always like a series of wake ups. One of my favorite things, and I think you were with me when this was shared with us, is that that failure is on the path to success. It's not a different path. It's not a path that diverges. There's certain things that happen that aren't actually failures. They're information, right? That allow us to move forward and have these different wake up calls that happen. And when I had retired from the department, it was one of those things that I had, previous to the kidnapping and the murder, I had shattered my gun hand. I was in a training accident in my work. And one of the things with that is, here, this is my gun hand, this is my work. And it took me, because I'm right-handed, it took me 6 months just to relearn how to use that hand. I mean, we're talking anything from getting dressed, to brushing my hair, to writing, to Vince, even managing toilet paper. I mean, who knew that was a hand-specific thing, in the daily things that we're up to. And it was very humbling because I had to move back in with my parents. I had to really, look at what I was doing, and that really could have crushed my spirit. Although it really did have me dig deep and find my grit and really start looking at, there are many possibilities. We may think that we're on one road. However, everything we do prepares us for the next step of what we're doing. And when I was in patrol, I had been in literally thousands of homes. And in that, I coined something called the clutter to drama ratio. And what that meant was the more clutter you had in your space, the more drama you had in your mindset, in your relationships, in all the different things that were happening. And so the first thing I did when I retired, when I started becoming an entrepreneur and I started helping people organize their space, because I knew that was something that was leaking people's power. It was a distraction and it wasn't allowing them to stay focused. So I created my online academy. I still have it on my website where people can go, where you can have the, clearing their spaces, whether it's paperwork or, looking at that clutter and how it affects you in your space. So that was my transition, my bridge from the department into becoming an entrepreneur, was helping people in their space. And then that evolved into them really standing in their power, because now that space created some clarity. And in that clarity, you could then design your life and really move forward with the bigger projects you were doing. And as a leader and entrepreneur, you have to be able to make quick decisions. You have to be able to create spaces so that you can think faster and do the bigger work that you're doing. So I'm really helping people move to that next level, to be that next level leader.
Could you share with us the transition that you went through from helping people declutter their space into decluttering their environment and their selves, in empowering themselves as leaders and entrepreneurs? Could you kind of walk through the transition that you went through? And where I'm going with this, Diane, is one of the things that we teach in Imagine Miracles coursework is that everything that happens in your life, every gift and talent that you develop, is taking you further and further down the path of your journey. And like you just said so elegantly, that you started out with helping people declutter their space, and then it moved to the next step. Could you walk us through that transition a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that, it's not a straight line. And I think this is important for whether, it's entrepreneurs or people in corporate. Sometimes we think that the road to success is like a straight succession. It's anything but. I find that whether they're my clients or people that I've talked to that have multi-million-dollar companies, the thing that they talk about is that those detours that maybe felt devastating at the time are the things that actually were the insights of what would happen. And so for me, when I was doing the organizing work, it gave me glimpses to see that work, that's what was happening in people's space, was affecting their mindset. So that's where the clutter to drama ratio came in. And what I noticed in the mindset is that people that were calling me, people would fly me to their home and have me stay with them for like 3 to 5 days to clear their space, because they were saying things to me like, I can't think. There's too much in this space. I am frustrated and feeling overwhelmed. I don't know where to begin. I'm stuck, right? And a lot of times we don't see the physical space having that direct impact on our mind, but it absolutely does. And so part of that leap that was happening there was that leaders who were feeling stuck in making critical decisions in their business, in really having some sort of harmony between their personal life and their work life, that all of these things were related. So you're right on the money, where it's all the things that we do are related. And if we try and isolate them into one single thing, that's where we start kind of falling off the wagon. And so I started having leaders who I was doing some organizing work, say, hey, I'm noticing that I'm feeling cluttered in my space at work, even if it wasn't physical clutter. because sometimes it's the mental clutter that was actually more impactful, that was actually more devastating, and they weren't able to move forward. So the same principles, I have a system called a reset system about what you're removing from your life, because particularly as a leader, it's more important what you're saying no to than what you're saying yes to. And when you have people pleasers and you've got people that want to have great impact, they tend to say yes to so many different things, which is great. You can do a lot of different things, but everything has a season, and you need to be able to know when are the priorities and when those things get implemented and when you hold back. And that's part of building up your leadership, is knowing what that looks like. And one of the other skills that came in with that is around communication. That's probably one of the number one things that my people will, call me on to spend time with themselves and their team, is around the communication, because that is just a huge, ball that opens, is the miscommunication that happens within corporations, whether they're small out of your home or, big ones, is that lack of communication, thinking we're being clear and we're not, and speaking languages that people can hear, and really looking at how that impact is. So really that became an expansion of looking at all the different environments of what people were looking at, how leaders were making their decision, and how they were showing up.
I've got so many questions I want to ask now, so I've got to put them in order. That was such a powerful and well said segment there. First of all, what are the steps of your reset system?
So the reset is RESET is a reset system, and the R is to remove. So in physical clutter, you can remove physical things out of your space, but in your mind, how are you removing negative thoughts? Right? How are you removing people out of your life that are not supporting you? Just because they were the people that came with you are not necessarily the people you're going to be moving forward with. So what are all the things that you need to remove out of your space, your mind, your essence, right? So once you have that, the first E is to evaluate. Now you're evaluating, why are you keeping something, right? There may be something that is anchoring you to your past. You're evaluating, what are the thoughts that you do want to have? What are you evaluating in terms of the things that you're reading? You're really looking at what are you bringing in, because you don't want to just move things out of your space and not actually fill it, because we know as one of the spiritual laws is that law of the vacuum, of that, something's going to fill it back up. We want to be intentional. And so it's all about being intentional with that. And then the S is about systemizing, right? You want to either have a system, whether it's for your physical things, having a systematic way that you recharge yourself, that you're actually designing your life in a way that really supports you. A lot of times I do with either my VIP clients or people bring me in for their teams, is I actually do a whole systematic day of how you prioritize, how you utilize year-long calendars to look at the flow of your life, to really design and just, decide how you're going to do things. One of the things I hear all the time is like, I don't have enough time. Well, we all have 24 hours, and there are people that are managing that, but it takes tools and ways to do that, and there's systems. So there's deeper systems to be able to support you, and keeping them very simple, right? You don't want to complicate things. Simplicity is the way to go. Complexity kills. So we want to be mindful of that. And then the second E in reset is to experience the ease, right? To see whether it's working or not. So many times we'll throw something together and think like we have to make it work. And it's not a cookie cutter. There's a lot of little nuances that we can make those shifts and changes to customize things to make it actually work for you, whether that's at home or at work. And then that final T that people tend to forget, but is most important, is to track and maintain. How do you keep things in place? How do you keep those systems going? How do you run that team? How do you keep the communication in flow? And so you want to have ways that you track and maintain those, which in a lot of cases, I set up systems for people that they only take 15 minutes, because it's not about the duration, it's about the impact and how you can actually move things forward and feel a sense of accomplishment in your day. And that's one of the big things that I train people on, is how is it that you set up your day and your life that you feel like you're winning? There's so many times where we set ourselves up to have too many things going on, too many things on our plate, and we feel a sense of, feeling bad, right? And feeling like you're not getting enough done, or you're not further ahead, or we're comparing ourselves to other people or other companies. But when we set ourselves up with our own goals and our own intentions, and we're setting ourselves up to win, then that energy is what propels us forward and allows us to stand more deeply as a leader.
Excellent. I keep getting more and more questions. We could talk for days. I get a feeling here. Tell me, how does somebody know they're winning?
I love that question. That's so good. They design it that way. They're very intentional about what it is that they're doing, right? You got to start with your vision about what it is that you actually want to do. You want to look at where do you want to go? Because your definition of winning can be different than 10 other people's definition of that. And so we really want to distill, is your idea of success and winning, is it truly your own? Or is it a little thing in the back of your head, which was maybe from your parents or an expectation from a mastermind or from where you think that you should be, versus really getting clear of what that would be like for you? And when you know what that is and you set up some measurable things, I'm a really big fan of doing things in quarters, doing 12-week years, doing very succinct things so you don't have the overwhelm of a whole year project. Get clear. What do you want to do in just this next 3 months? And then move towards that and have measurable ways that you can actually see that you're moving towards something where you actually feel a sense that you're winning. And winning doesn't necessarily mean that you're moving the dial on the finances or that you're clearing more things off your list. Part of that winning is that, are you moving in the direction, right? Because so many times we can not see anything for a while. I mean, this is, I'm sure, a perfect example for you with the instrumentation on planes. There's a lot you don't see, but you know you're moving forward. And so when you have that feeling that you're making that forward progression, you can feel good about that because you know the destination. Even though you have to course correct a lot along the way, you're going to make it because you've already set the intention that that's where I'm going.
It's very powerful in realizing, and this is something that I haven't even shared with anybody, and it really just popped into my head, finding reasons for appreciation and gratitude and just the movement can be so powerful.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things I love, somebody had shared with me about using a GPS, that a GPS actually doesn't work unless you move. If you would just stand there with a GPS, it's not going to move any dials. It's not going to give you instructions. Nothing's going to happen. You actually need to take a step forward, and then it gives you the next instructions. So all we have to do is move forward, and we will get feedback. We will get new information about where to go from there. We just need to worry about the first step.
And making that first step is where finding people like Diane, finding people who can really look at who you are, help you find your answers and take that step is really the place where, as Diane said, the GPS kicks in, and that GPS looks like many different things, even our inner guidance to help us walk in those directions.
Right.
Earlier, you said you were talking about the importance of communication. Can you give the Diane Halfman #1 tip for communications?
Clarify and verify. You always need to clarify what somebody is asking you to do and to make sure that that communication actually happened, right? So communication is a two-way street. Sometimes we think we have an idea of what someone said, and then how many times does that happen? I mean, the classic game of telephone is that you tell enough people and that person down the line has a completely different understanding of what's going on. So the more we can break things down into, smaller pieces and to actually clarify with someone, hey, did you just say to do this? Can you just give me a little bit more information here? Don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions. Sometimes we feel like it's so simple, like they talk about the classic, there's no stupid questions, right? The stupid question is the one that's not asked. Right. And so it can slow the team down. It can slow ourselves down, to really be in a place of curiosity, to not be afraid to ask questions.
Great. And that's on the receiver side. Let me ask you this. One of the things that it took me a while to understand, I was along in the years when I really figured it out, is there is no message until it's received. What kind of tip could you give the sender?
Okay, perfect. Well, first of all, I would say be present, right? So many times when we say something to someone, we're multitasking and we're doing other things. So you have to see, did that information actually land with that person? Are you present? Are they present? There's a lot we can read in, nonverbal communication, whether or not someone is actually being present to actually receive what it is that you're giving. So to be really more conscientious as a communicator, to really be present with the person that you're talking to and make sure that they actually understand what you're asking them to do.
Isn't it amazing? Being present just keeps popping up everywhere that you go. How important being present in the moment in our day-to-day life is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
This is my favorite part of the show. Believe it or not, we're well on our way to being close to being done, but I got to get to this part right here because it's my favorite part. What I like to ask the guest is, the imagination would like to know something that you're thinking about or ready to make a step into to change your life or your business that nobody else has heard. Is there anything that you can share with us?
That no one else has heard. Let's think about this. Well, I would say from Imagination Place, I don't know that no one's not heard this, but one of the things I don't share as often is my big dream imagination, if you will, is that I want to own all of the homes on my block. And, this big dream of mine is really about creating a community where there's a place for my daughters to them to have their own home, my extended family and my friends to be able to be together, because I believe when we create community together, and I create some of this in my live events, when we have that mastermind of people together. One of the things I don't always share is I want to have a wise council of 9 where when we get together in fun, in environments, we actually get to create things that will have greater impact in the world. So my company gives 10% to charity. It's, money, the first money that comes in goes to our charity account. And so I believe that when you have these communities you get to create together, that we are actually meant to collaborate. We're actually meant to do things together. And to me, it just feels more fun to be part of those conversations. And I know that I don't always share that because I think some people may think I'm a little crazy to think that I want to do that. It's a big vision to have. But, I think of Walt Disney, right? I mean, how many people said he was nuts, building his dreams in life on a little mouse. And so I remember that, which is one of the reasons why, one of my granddaughters' golden birthday is this Saturday. She's going to be 11 on the 11th. And these balloons pictures behind me is part of the celebration that's going to be there. And I think it's important to have things that are, light and levity, and that, yes, we want to make great impact on the world, but we want to have fun and joy as part of it. And for me, part of that imagination is creating environments that have people come together to make great impact.
One of the things I like to share through the Discover Your Miracle Life material is in community, it is exponential, the energetic change that we can make in the world. The Council of 9 can affect 8,100 people, just the Council of 9, and that's directly affect them. So as you bring those 8,100 people in, just think what Diane can do in the world as she expands. So we're going to bring the energy, the collective energy of the imagination all together to see you and send you the energy of creating that dream of owning your block to bring your community into one place and to see you find joy and expansion in bringing the people you most love together.
I love it. Thank you.
And it's a powerful energy. So it's taking you well down your journey now for that accomplishment to happen. Could you give us, as we get to a place where it's time to close, could you give us one piece of advice that you think's the most important thing for people to know in this moment?
Well, what's coming up to me in the moment is a quote by Les Brown that says that, you can't see the big picture when you're in the frame. And, if you don't have a coach or mentor or someone that you can really bounce things off of, that you can really, because we don't know what we don't know. And so when we're in it, we don't see those blind spots. We don't see those things going on. So, if you look at the most successful people in the world, they always have a coach or a mentor, someone of a wise counsel who maybe is just a few steps ahead of them. They may be a lot of steps ahead of them, but they see something that you don't see. And so really look at who are the people in your life that are supporting you. It's part of that environment of who you have in your space to really look at who do you have in your life that is actually pulling you towards the direction that you want to go, and to cut loose the people that are holding you back.
Oh, that's great advice. How can people get in touch with you and learn more about what you do and maybe even find out about some of your programs?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, you definitely can go to my website, to dianehalfman.com. There's some free gifts there. One of the things that I love to give people is one of my free gifts is the liferesetquiz.com. You can literally just go to liferesetquiz.com. It takes 4 minutes, and it gives you an indicator of having some awareness around where you are now. And when you have that, you can make those adjustments. You can see where you can celebrate, where you're winning, and where you might have some holes that you need to fill up. And so having a tool like that really allows you to move forward with that. I also love, I'm on Facebook, so you can go to my Diane Halfman fan page. You can look in there. You can send me a messenger. I have a lot of live events that I'm doing as well. So if you want to be part of the community, we're going to be together in Colorado doing a whole zipline adventure, and I do retreats. So there's lots of things. So whatever it is I can do to support you, feel free to shoot me a private messenger, and I'd be happy to support in any way I can.
And every bit of that information is going to be available to you on the show page. Just go to themiracleu.com. The very top episode is going to be Diane over the next week and a half. I think it'll be out the 18th of May. So go to that show page, get all that information about Diane and the work that she does. Diane, it was so wonderful to have you here today. I've been wanting to get you on the podcast since I started, and it's amazing how everything just kind of folds together and shows itself in the perfect moment. So thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Vince, so much for having me. And I so appreciate what you're doing here in the world. These are such important messages for people to get that inspiration to go to the next level that they're doing. So just know I appreciate you and everything you're doing, and I can't wait to see you soon.
And thank you for your example. On behalf of Mary, my business partner, and my wife, have a miracle day.
You've completed this episode of The Miracle You, but we have plenty more to help you discover your own personal passion and purpose. Head over to themiracleu.com for free resources to assist you on your journey, as well as register for our free webinar, Discover Your Miracle Life, 3 mind awakening steps toward your unique purpose, or apply for a one-on-one Your Life, Your Way breakthrough session and discover your next best step on your journey. All available exclusively on our website. That's themiracleu.com. We look forward to sharing more experiences of passion, purpose, and life by design next time, right here on The Miracle You.